We're here with Abe Furth.
We are.
Co-founder, co-owner of Orono Brewing Company, Wild Maine Hard Seltzer, Woodman's, Furth Properties.
Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for having me.
Exactly. Welcome to this.
Tell us about this strange place that we've never been to before.
Have you ever heard NPR has those tiny room concerts?
Yeah.
They're like in their studio. This is the Tiny Room podcast. We're in the hut, you know.
We have way more space. We just like to be this close while we're recording.
We laughed because we were like, Adam and I were sitting out here. We were inside. We moved outside. We're like, this would be cool. It looks like the rain's going to stave off. And we got a picnic table all set up. We had the microphones all hooked up. And I look and we just hear, I'm like, oh, God. But
we're going to see some exciting weather during this.
Yeah, we're in the hut, though. This is the beer hut at Orono Brewing Company. This is fun because it was not supposed to be. We really didn't plan this when you guys bought the building. It was just like, this is just a building.
This was where they used to store junk. And,
I grabbed lots of firewood from this shed.
Yeah, because actually we did have it, because remember that we were firewood here when we first opened.
It's much better used as a beer hut.
Yeah, and then we had the cooler and
tap lines thanks to this dude.
Yeah, they're clean too.
Very clean.
But yeah, so we talked with Mark a couple of weeks ago. Earlier this morning, we got to talk to Mark, but it was a couple of weeks ago on releasing these podcasts. But about how you guys founded Orono Brewing Company back in 2014. But you tell us your story about how Orono Brewing Company got started. So, you know, your version of it. CB's lying.
Sure. Well, 2014, I was bartending at Woodman's, which was our first business.
Mm-hmm.
I was still there. I was not bartending as much as I used to back in 2005 when we first opened, but I still had some time behind the bar and I still had a real sense of like what people were enjoying for beer.
Mm-hmm.
And we started off, really cocktail heavy, and then slowly added tap lines and had more rotation. And by the time I kind of handed over the reins to the people that are running the bar now, and Mark's a business partner who's, doing all the orders and everything, we were rotating almost all the lines, and I had a lot more kind of like opportunity to try different beers. And I got to see it from a perspective as a bartender, and as a bar manager, and see how people were managing their brands, how the quality of the beer was, how the distribution relationships worked. And it just got me really excited to try to do something through Woodman's on our own. Started off with a very small, vision of very local, and knew that if we wanted to have any success as a very small brewery, we needed to make great beer, because Maine has such a incredibly competitive landscape. So talked to Heather and Mark about it, my two business partners, and the goal was, let's keep Woodman's relevant and let's make great beer, and that will be part of a way that we can have Woodman's be around forever. And they were on the same page. They thought it was a cool idea. Mark was definitely like the first of the three business partners who was like a serious beer drinker, and he loved the idea. We just knew that we needed somebody that could make great beer.
Sure.
So that's where Asa came in. I talked to probably 30 different people, asked him who we should talk to, and like 100% of the people were like, "Oh, you need to talk to Asa." So I hadn't really met him, and I just went to the farmhouse, the homebrew store in Bangor, where he was helping run that spot, and I was like, "Hey, Asa, I'm Abe from Woodman's. Love to learn how to make beer from you, so I can like be educated to a point where I can find a brewmaster." So I was like, I'll take a class from you. I'll pay you to. And he was like, "Yeah, dude, you don't have to pay me. Like, I'm happy to sit around and chat about beer with you."
Oh yeah.
And just Asa being Asa, he was just, he's so passionate about what he was doing then, just like he is now. So I spent time with him, and he had a bunch of kegs of beer he'd made, and I learned from him what I could, which was probably like 0.5% of what he knows about beer. But I learned enough to be like, okay, cool. Like, this is the guy. Like, I need to get Asa to do this. And so I asked him after talking to Heather and Mark, like, what do you guys think? Like, it would be awesome to get Asa to join the team. And so I mentioned it to Asa, and he was like, yeah, I've had a lot of opportunities to get into the brewing side of things, but I want to be in a place that allows me to be the person that's in charge of the creative side, as well as how we set it up. And also, I don't want to be like, I want to be able to stay fluid as far as make new styles of beer and have that creativity. So we all agreed that would be, how we'd want to do it too. And he was like, the other thing is I like love where I work. So it would take me like a year to move on because I don't want to leave them high and dry. So we were like, that works too. It's going to take forever for us to get going.
Yeah.
So we all came to an agreement. He talked to the owners of the farmhouse. They were like, yeah, man, that sounds cool. You should do it. Thanks for giving us all the time. And we took a year to, figure out where we wanted the equipment we wanted. We started off with a super small 4-barrel system, but it was like high quality. We were down there where Dr. Records used to be in downtown Orono in a little tiny 400 square foot space. It all started there, Asa, Mark, Heather, and I, as a 4-person team, and Asa was the one person making the beer, brewing it, doing all the cleaning, doing everything. And I think that first year we probably did 600 barrels of beer or something, and it went very quickly from the dream of having a beer that we were proud of at Woodman's to distributing it through our van all around Maine and growing based on just people falling in love with the beer.
And obviously, like I was telling, we talked to Mark and stuff like that. I talked to earlier. I didn't move back here till 2016, so I didn't even Orono Brewing Company was on the radar because I had been friends with Andy for many years and Andy Gagan over at Gagan's Brothers, and they're the ones that helped you move in the original 4-barrel system. They were there, as a local brewer helping you guys out. So I saw photos online and all that stuff about Orono Brewing Company and stuff. That wasn't until I moved back until I tasted actual beer, some Ozone, some Lightning Tree, where I was like, this brewery knows what they're doing. And then obviously in 2017, I came on board and so on. But it's one of the things I've always respected about Orono Brewing Company. And it's going to be weird for me to talk about this because obviously I work for Orono Brewing Company, but is that you guys have taken the time and not slow, but meaningful growth. You didn't just you and Abe and you and Mark and Heather didn't just sit down and go, okay, we're going to open Martin Street in 2014 from the bat with millions and millions and millions of dollars in debt. Totally. You guys were like, okay, let's start with this 400 square foot space of downtown Orono, and then eventually, in 2018, open up Martin Street, and years later.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to the concept of building a quality product first and then building the brand off of that, rather than building a brand and then kind of backfilling as an afterthought the product. I think that we were so lucky that we had Asa as that person that was putting the quality product first and then the brand followed. It made my job pretty easy as far as somebody that's doing marketing and doing distribution, because the beer spoke for itself. So really, it's just been that early on tiny team and then growing to this, this existing team, which is, again, we're just so fortunate to have incredibly talented people all around us. And, it makes it fun. It makes it so we're not burning out, and it makes it so we can continue to have fun goals and interact with new customers as well, while at the same time keeping people that have been part of the business since we opened.
And and one thing we had talked about on the last episode with Mark, and I think you talked about building your brand. And the one thing, I've worked for a lot of different bars, and one of the things that stands out with the brewery and the bar is you seemed very conscious of building the community too. And so I met was that a big part of you planning out for Woodman's and OBC and, just all of these locations? You always seem very focused on how can we also build up the community.
Totally. And that was something that, that's kind of how we ended up in Orono. We came here to go to college, and we stayed because not because we went to college here, but because we worked in the restaurant industry here. Sure. I can't imagine that we'd be in Orono still if we hadn't all had jobs in the service industry. Sure. And got to know the community, got to see the opportunity to contribute to the community, and then just fell in love with being here because of the people. Sure. And so that's always been front and center. And it was a bit of an adjustment for me going from that day-to-day direct interaction with community members through bartending. That was a really hard thing for me to leave, because it was a big part of my identity, of feeling probably an overinflated sense of self-importance as far as these people are here partially because they want to see me, not that they want to see somebody.
Yeah, sure.
They wanted to see somebody that was friendly and courteous and would have a conversation. But 24-year-old Abe was no, they're here because they want to chat with me specifically. That was a real humbling experience to realize oh no, when I left the bar, we got busier. Yeah. So maybe they were there despite me, so I think, but that was it, like that was a big, now the interaction for me personally with community is different because I'm, I'm not always around where open, but I still feel like, by being good community members and by, having staff that are happy to be here and that we're all getting along and treating each other well, that's a way to be a strong part of the community and to help support, that vibe that we hold, very sacred, which is come to a place and feel energized and happy to be here rather than feel like depleted because you went to a place that felt not good.
Yes. I love how you brought up the whole like being the front facing with the community and being a bartender, because I feel like more of my friends or people that I know, acquaintances who have either come back to Bangor, or the Bangor area, or greater Bangor area, from being away, have been in the service industry at some point in their time when they were here before they went. Like, so say if someone graduated college at UMaine and went to Portland for their job or whatever, and have come back, a lot of those, very few of those people have come back to this area who weren't at one point in the service industry bartending part-time when they're in college or something like that. Like if they had just like worked at Kmart or Target or something like that, a lot of those people are still gone. It's like people who actually got to interact face-to-face with customers that live in this area and call this place home. A lot of those people have come back. And, we mentioned on the podcast with Mark about how Ethan, who trained me to bartend at Orono Brewing Company, left to go to Portland and now is back and lives up here with his fiance and so on. So it's like they were in the industry and it made them like love this community.
Yeah. And that's what we had talked about with Mark too, is just there's something about just the service industry community too, especially when you have a good one like here, that it's something you want to come back to, which is a rare feeling for a lot of jobs.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's cool to have that age diversity too. Of, you have people that I know and that have been in, there's a person I know, for example, that's down in Portland bartending at one of my favorite spots, who taught me how to bartend almost 20 years ago. And it's awesome that you have that continuity. And then, talking to people at the Woodman's employee party yesterday that are 21 years old, who are so excited and love Orono because of their work at the restaurant, or the bar or the brewery. Like everybody I was talking to that were students that were working in the service industry had a much deeper sense of community and deeper roots in Orono, which is so cool. And that's why it's so fun to have that age diversity, in my opinion, and why it's cool to live in a college town.
Absolutely.
And I think there's this, Taylor and I talk about it all the time, but how I run into people all the time at places. And some of these people are from when I worked at Gagan's, or some of these people when I was just strictly bartending at Orono Brewing Company. And some of the people now come here. But there's something about the small community, but Orono and Bangor are not it's a big place. Like Bangor has a lot of population and Orono is not tiny. And it's a university with thousands of students there. But there's just something about how the people that come out to our restaurants and bars in this area go to all of them. So it's not like people that come to Orono Brewing Company and Woodman's don't just come to Orono Brewing Company and Woodman's.
Totally.
I run into them at other restaurants in the area, or, at shops or whatever. And it's just like, they say hi, even if I've only met them once. And it's like one of those things that when I was living in Massachusetts, I would be the person at the bar in the community talking to a bartender, and I would run into that bartender somewhere else and they would have no idea who I was.
Right.
And it was just like, and nothing against Massachusetts, there's just a lot more people, a lot more going on. And it's just like something about this community made me want to, like, it's nice. It feels like you mentioned about how they come to Orono Brewing Company to Woodman's because of you when you were 24. Sometimes I feel like that too. I'm like, oh, they know me because they come to Orono Brewing Company because of me. It's like, no, they don't. They come here because we built such a great place to come.
But that's the thing. It's the whole vibe.
Yes.
It's
right.
It is you, but it's also the other people, and it's that there's a culture of inclusion and happiness, and like we want it to be. And
ultimately, I think it's probably a very positive thing that when somebody moved into your position, it didn't fall apart, right? That means you built something that had substance to it,
which
is hard.
And I think that, I always felt bad, like, I still do. If I see somebody at a different restaurant and they're like, oh, I feel bad. Trust me, I went to like OBC last week. I'm like, don't worry. Like, we're here too. We should all support each other. I don't expect you only to come to OBC or Woodman's.
I don't know if I would want someone to only come here, honestly, because again, then you wouldn't really know whether or not you really like the experience here or not, because you don't have anything to base it against.
Plus, the expectations are so high.
But it's funny too, like it's a small world thing. On the way home from the women's gathering yesterday, I stopped by there for a few hours, and on the way home, I was on Kirkland, and someone was walking across the street to get their mail who's a regular here, who had no idea that's where they lived, and they just happened to be left Mark's house at the right time, the right speed on Poplar around to Kirkland to get to their Stillwater. And they were crossing the road, and I didn't see me, but it was one of those weird things that it's like, now I'm gonna walk in here and be like, hey, I know exactly where you live. But it's like a small world kind of thing that I'm like, I don't think I ever did that in Massachusetts.
Maine just feels like a small town. Like no matter where I go or like who I visit, it's always like you said. I've been out of town and like walking down the street, and it's just like, oh, hi.
So I had a mountain bike race at Sugarloaf on Saturday.
Yep.
Saturday night we went to the Rack, which is one of the first places I self-distributed to. Actually, the first place I ever sold a keg to was White Nitro Cream Ale to the Rack. Hanging out outside, and people are coming up because of the mountain bike race, chatting with us, and like, you know, super friendly, awesome vibe. And this dude comes up, and he'd met us at the race, and then he was saying hi to us, and then he came back about 45 minutes later, and he was like, I just found out that my daughter is marrying Heather's cousin. And I was like, wow, holy shit. So like you and Heather are practically related.
Yes.
Yeah. So his daughter is marrying Heather's first cousin. That's the way it happens in Maine. Like you meet somebody, and then 10 minutes later you find out that you're practically related.
But do you know so-and-so? And you're like, yeah.
Well, it's like I said, I always made the joke. My parents, we went going on vacation to Florida, and so I'm like, hey, you know, you're from Maine, you know so-and-so, and you go, I don't, it's Maine's. Oh yes, I do know them.
Yeah.
But like when we were in New York City, and this is something we talked about with Mark about how I was loving the fact that Orono Brewing Company went with the name Orono instead of, you know, again, we talked about it. Woodman's was the name originally, and so on, or not originally because you never actually released product under the name of it. But like you guys had batted around some names, and Woodman's Brewing Company was one of them. And we talked about how when we were in New York City, we were at Fool's Gold in 2017, and people were stumbling into the bar because of the name Orono, like because of the tap takeover and seeing that, not because of if it was called Woodman's, people wouldn't have known.
And even crazier, somebody had seen. Is there anybody hasn't seen Asa? He has long curly hair. He's very recognizable. Somebody had seen him on our Instagram page and had never met him. And then they were walking down the street in New York City and saw me, maybe recognized me, maybe didn't, then saw Asa and were like, oh yeah, that's gotta be Asa. And they stopped us. And they're like, what are you guys doing here? We're like, oh, we're doing a party at Fool's Gold. And she was like, sweet, I'm coming. She was a UMaine grad from a few years ago. So it was even beyond just like knowing that Orono was there. They actually, in the city of, you know, millions, they were like, oh, I think I know that guy, which is hilarious.
Well, one of the people that stumbled in there was this woman stumbled in there. We started talking that night, and like I said, when we were talking to people, come to find out she was on vacation visiting her sister or someone, and was Ace's ex-girlfriend's hairdresser.
Of course.
Right? Like just this weird connection on that aspect of that lived up here.
That's awesome.
And it was just one of those weird things about like how close the people are, even in a city of millions of people. We could actually have a whole podcast just to talk about the fun things that we did on that trip.
And we're going back. We're going back. Ace and I are going back to New York in early August.
Yeah.
And we're going, and that's a fun thing too. Like with that whole Sloop collab came out. A guy that used to work with Sloop. Awesome dude. Ran into him at Blind Tiger and had never met him before. And he had been up at Bondurant's and had heard that there was a dude named Abe that was like trying to get Orono beer going in New York. And he saw me with like an Orono growler. And he was like, hey, are you Abe? And I was like, yeah, dude, how do you know that? Small world. And then like we became buddies. So
and that's something I will say to a lot of people when we had a conversation. I did a tour on Saturday in the brewery, and people were like, well, you know, how did you guys go from downtown Orono to this to statewide distribution now in multiple states across this country and so on. And I was like, a lot of it's hard work and dedication, is getting on the grind, but it's also not hard selling. Like one of the best things that, you know, I've seen is I've been gone on sales trips with Abe and been like, we're just going to go and have a beer and chat with a bartender, see if the manager's around just to say hi, get some food. And, you know, we'll just, where are you guys from? You're from Orono Brewing Company. And then we moved on. It wasn't like, hey, buy our stuff. We have this beer. Here's this stuff. It was just like, drop off some samples.
I'll give some free bartender advice. I'm gonna go back in time to when I was always, as you know, I'm always running late. So when I was opening the bar, I was always running late. So if we opened Woodman's at 4, at 3:45, I was furiously, you know, squeezing lime juice and cutting limes and trying to do the stuff that like I could get done before we opened, which I'd still have like half an hour of prep to do. Drove everybody nuts. So in that moment, inevitably somebody would come in and try to sell me beer.
Always.
They'd be like, hey, I'm looking for the owner. First of all, you know, 90% of the owners don't make the decision on what beer gets bought. So first of all, first strike.
Yeah.
So I'm the owner behind the bar, busting my ass trying to get open. I'm like, he's not in, you know? And then he'd be like, well, who, you know, so there's just so many ways that people sell beer
Mhm.
wrong,
Mhm.
and try to sell beer to a place they don't understand or a town they don't know. They're just like checking out the boxes. It's not how many places you go to. It's not covering every single spot. It's actually having real relationships with somebody, having a product that people want. If your beer isn't great and if it's not marketed well, nobody's gonna want it anyways. But also you can have good beer and good marketing and have a terrible salesperson, and that's gonna go against you as well. There's people out there that back when I was buying beer that would have done better by just not having a salesperson, which is why I'm so lucky that we have Patrick, who is a bartender that understands industry, and that we hired Patrick and got, this fantastic person who knows how to handle himself in a restaurant and a bar. And that's what every brewery should have, that person. If you haven't worked in a restaurant, you shouldn't sell beer to a restaurant.
And we talked about that with Mark too, where it's like that experience is invaluable in multiple different ways. I mean, as an owner, as a manager, as a salesperson, and what's shocking though is how often you see somebody that's like, I came from insurance sales. And you're like, and now I sell beer. And like you said, you're working, they're like, here, try this. And it's like, just leave it on time. We're going to drink it after hours and that's it.
And also just like, don't show up before we're open. Guess what? There's stuff that we're trying to do. It's a job. We're working. And we're not ready.
Or during service, which I've had happen many times when I was in Illinois, like middle of a Friday night. Hey, I'm John. I want to talk to you about beer. No.
And it's the when can I come? Okay, I know you're busy right now. I want to talk to you about some of my beer. When are you available? Are you available some point tonight? I can come back. It's whatever. Just like the being open and available, not like your schedule. When you're selling beer to a restaurant, your schedule doesn't matter. It's all about the people you're going to. And Abe's one of the things that like I said, I don't want to just like, make Abe's head huge with how good he is at his job. But with
too late
is the idea that you don't stop visiting the accounts that buy a crap ton of our beer.
Right.
And that's one of the things I think that ends up happening with a lot of people. It's like, okay, these 10 accounts are buying beer every week. I don't need to talk to them. They're fine. They're buying beer. The reason why our top 10 accounts that are across the state, across the country, buy beer over and over again is because Abe or Pat are still in there on a regular basis to be like, thank you for buying our beer. Thank you so much. Like, and if it's a special keg that we only have a limited amount for, hey, I got this keg coming out. Like it's their relationships, and there's not that relationships I think you got from being a bartender, from being in this community about and working with, again, good people. Like
totally. When we signed with a distributor, we had a list of 20 places that had made our brand. We were like, these 20 places are always going to get first dibs.
Sure.
And I want to make sure that they know when we have something that comes out that's special. And obviously, like by law, everybody gets it. But please give me a chance to like let these folks know that it's available. And that's something that's so important. It's just to remember where you came from, remember who helped you get there, keep those relationships. To lose a relationship is tragic, and sometimes you lose a relationship with the buyer because they move on,
right?
And then maybe that place isn't the same. That's okay. But like if the person's there that helped build you and help build your brand, then hopefully that continues to go throughout the generations of people that are working there. And for sure, I think that probably 95% of the spots that help build us are still huge parts of of who we are, and that's super fun. I mean, I think like, look back at like the early days, like the Thirsty Pig was the first place to pour OBC in Portland.
Right.
And Allie and Dave showed up in Orono a week and a half ago or something. 2 weeks ago, and it was just like, it's so easy because it's genuine friendship. Like, we'd love to have you guys here. Stay at our house. Like, let's hang out. Like that's what it should be. It should be fun and easy.
And we've known, we obviously won't get into it, but we've known bars and restaurants that will not sell someone's beer anymore because of the opposite, like because of the complete utter disrespect that someone can give to a bar too, a restaurant, like not treating your bar and restaurant with respect and the love that they deserve for pouring your beer. Because we wouldn't be without the customers. Orono Brewing Company wouldn't be open right now without the people actually drinking the beer, right? But people can't drink the beer unless it's put into their hands. And so the thing is, like, we obviously make the product, but it's like without those two levels of people, we're nothing. And like back when we were just the tasting room, if we were just the tasting room in downtown Orono, and OBC was just trying to pour beer out of the tasting room, we really could do whatever the hell we want because we're doing what we're doing. Where you come to us, we're gonna pour the beer. You get the experience you get where we get here. But when you started going outside of the four walls of Orono Brewing Company, you start to go out other places. And this is something that I've learned over the past three or 4 years, that it's like there's a lot more levels and onion level petals to peel that they go into this, and there's a lot more involved. And part of it is that those bars and restaurants need the respect because no one's going to pour your beer. You're not going to be able to have facilities as of our facility here.
Exactly. And also the distribution network.
Yes.
Like the people that are driving your beer to the restaurant and the sales reps and, the the person that is, in the kitchen when you're dropping the beer off, it's just basically, I think it's just like treating every single person in every role with the same respect as you treat, the person that you were most trying to impress.
Right.
Just being cool to people.
And back in 2005-06, when you were buying beer off of people, and so did you ever expect to be where you are now?
It's funny. I had this like weird thing where like I loved the restaurant industry, but it wasn't something like I felt like starting like a franchise would be really difficult. Starting 10 Woodmans would it just felt to me like it would be extremely hard. Something that would be maybe not something that we would be able to pull off in our part of Maine. So I remember actually being kind of envious of beer reps because I saw that they were able to create beer in one location and then build their brand by sending it to spots, not having to have 10 locations.
Sure.
They have one key location and they share their beer. And I remember being like, man, that would be really cool to be part of it. And I had this strange like feeling that it was going to happen. And I didn't know when or how, but I just kind of felt like this beer world, I think is going to be part of like what is going to transform from our restaurant world. And then when we opened the brewery, we opened that tiny spot. And I had this thought that like, I think that, sometime, I had no idea when, I kind of felt like, if it wasn't this building, it was going to be something like it. And then that was going to be like, kind of like the perfect size for us to be like, able to still be really nimble, but also to be able to have enough beer to share with people around Maine and, beyond Maine. So, where we are now is like what I had hoped would have happened as far as size, and anything from here is fun and I'm open to it, but I totally I'm so curious to what's going to happen in the next 10 years because things are continuing to be more regional. I think that local is more important than almost anything else in a lot of people's minds. So, we certainly aren't going to, bet the farm on trying to be the next national brand, and that even comes to, the seltzer we launched a couple months ago. I see that we've had great success in Maine and people are excited about it. They love the fact that we're, creating jobs in a delicious seltzer here in Maine, but we haven't sent it out of state. So if and when we do, it'll be interesting to see if it's similar to beer where, you could be the best brewery in the world. And if you send it to Maine, it's not going to compete with the top 10 Maine brands.
Nope.
Because honestly, I think the top Maine brands are some of the best breweries in the world. But there's some states for sure that are probably less regional or less focused on just drinking their own state's beer. But Maine, Vermont, and some other ones are very, very local centric. And I'll be curious to see if that happens with seltzer as well. But I think for us, we're just very happy that we know we can make enough beer for Maine and that we can make enough beer to send some beer to the other New England states that we love too.
Which is one of the things that Abe used to talk about when you preach a lot is like, take care of the place you're from.
Sure.
So like for us, it does come from Orono to Bangor to Portland to the entire state. To then from that point on, and whenever there's beer, he's always like Maine gets priority. Maine gets the beer first because Maine is where we're from, and it's where they made where we are now, and so on. And I think there is something about Maine like that. Maine maple syrup, Maine made, Maine this, Maine water. Where in Vermont is very similar to that also. But there's other states. I mean, like I don't want to call any out, but like Virginia is not like I gotta have something from Virginia. Right. It's like that. Those are the kind of states. And Mark's mentioned it to me over.
I'm from Virginia.
My brother lives in Virginia, but like. Mark mentioned at Whitman's too, how like having beer from out of state on tap a lot of times it just sits there because it could be the best beer made. It just sits there because of the fact that people they come in from Bar Harbor on their way home to get to the airport. They go to Whitman's for dinner and they want something from Maine. It could be something else from not from us, but it could be from Mass Landing or some of our other friends in the industry. But it's just something it's been made within the borderlines of Maine.
Yeah, some of the best breweries in the country have pulled out of Maine because they can't sell beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's kind of sad to see them go, but I'm like, all right, like you got to, and that's what you have to remember as you're growing your brewery is that that's going to be what happens to us in some of those other states. Like we're not sending beer to Vermont, and our distributor sells beer. Their overall company has a distributor in Vermont, and they're super honest with us. They're like, yeah, I mean, you can post it in if you want, but I don't think that people in Vermont are dying to drink Maine beer. They have plenty of Vermont beer to choose from.
Sure.
So that's one of the things I actually really appreciate about being with a distributor that is in all the areas we sell to, because it allows us to take care of Maine first. And that's actually a directive from them as well. So if we have a shortage of tubular, a directive from corporate on our distribution side is make sure Maine gets taken care of. If you have to short, somebody else, do that, but never short your home state.
Sure.
And I can't imagine how stressful it would be to have different distributors in each state and have to have them fighting over who gets the beer. It's so nice having that understanding, being on the same page where Maine comes first. We 100% want to take care of everybody, but if there's a shortage, we're going to take care of Maine first.
And we're also lucky to be in a state with a distributor that does our distribution in the state is with craft. There's no fighting in between interstate interstate either. There's other states that have you have to sign with like western part of the states with one distributor or that eastern, and so like they're now fighting over intrastate.
Absolutely, that happens in Maine too with some, I'm sure. But we're very lucky.
to have that.
I love working with craft distributors, and I also I feel like we're lucky that we have a really strong guild in Maine from a Brewers Guild perspective. Sean Sullivan's our executive director, and he does an awesome job of keeping us all unified. And we just have a great community of breweries too, where we're really definitely pushing each other. I think it's good to be in a state as competitive as Maine, because it forces you to not relax. Like you got to keep on your shit. Don't get complacent, because that's the kiss of death. I mean, there's great beer out there, and where I don't see our other breweries in Maine as competitors. I think it's super healthy to have so many strong breweries in a state, but I think that it definitely keeps everybody on their toes.
Do you find it easier that not easier, but like, are you happy you got into the brewing industry in 2014 and not 2021?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I'm so glad that we started off. We were able to start so small then and grow slowly. I think there is still room. There's so much diversity in size and distribution model and all that you can still start and be successful in 2021. But I'm definitely glad we got a head start and learned what we learned throughout the last 7 years, and very happy where we are and kind of how our day to day and month to month and year to year is. And I think that, but that's one of the things we worked on as a guild too, is, making sure that people had choice and distribution model and all of that, so that people can grow slowly and not have to make that jump to distribution size until they're ready to.
I mean, you guys, like we mentioned with Mark too, is like you have a team, your team, the 4 owners, each one has their own skills, which has been helpful over the years of opening the restaurant. You mentioned the idea of opening multiple Woodmans. You did end up opening another restaurant when you opened up 61 Margin Street here. Did you ever see that happening? Like opening another restaurant at one point? I mean, I don't think that was probably, once you got to the brewery part, you probably were like, okay, we're going to focus on beer.
Totally. Yeah. I think that the biggest thing for us with this spot is it's so big and there's so much room for people to hang out, and we wanted people to be here all day, that it made sense to create that, that kitchen aspect. And Mark, I don't think if we didn't have a business partner in Mark, it might not have happened, because having that business partner that has that kitchen experience can make you feel comfortable with the fact that it's doable. If it was Heather and myself and Asa, it might have been too much. We would have just like begging food trucks to stop by. But with the fact that Mark has that skill set, made it feel like, okay, this is doable. And then he was able to find the people to to run it with him, which is awesome.
Which I love. I mean, obviously bring up Orono Brewing Company quite often on this podcast because of the fact that I work here. But like over the years, we've opened Bangor. I wasn't part of that, but I came in just after the first year that Bangor opened, which is a small tasting room. Then you opened Orono Brewing, this one. And then we added the patio, which was one of the coolest things, I think, when you talk about back to the, beginning of this episode where we talked about community, is like giving back to the community. We distribute beer all over the state. Right. But like one way we can give back to the community is give them a place to come hang out. And during COVID, this was freaking perfect. Like, obviously, I don't know if anybody hasn't been to Orono Brewing Company in Margin Street. We have a freaking awesome patio here, but basically doubled the interior size of the patio with this outside space, with the flowers that, Lacey's put in, and with the picnic tables and the umbrellas and the beer hut.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
It's just incredible. I don't like, one of those things I always like, obviously we're biased here, but I'm always thinking like, this is one of the best looking places in the state. Like, honestly, just because the way the environment is out here inside. It's different.
It doesn't feel like a patio out here.
No.
It's a full outdoor space, which is like a very different feeling, you know, of just like being kind of walled in this closed space, and then just having this kind of space you can wander around, you can interact. I mean, it's a different vibe.
Like basketball, cornhole, bocce ball, fire pits. Like,
it's particularly fun looking back on what this place was, and the year before we bought it.
Yeah.
It's basically just like sitting here, and kind of rotting away.
Yeah.
So I definitely love the fact that people find their way down here and enjoy it, because it's definitely fun for us. I mean, this is definitely one of the spots that feels like very energizing, thanks to everybody that's working here and making it an enjoyable spot for people. And the fact that we're in Orono, which is not a huge town, but it is a large university, the biggest university in Maine, makes it really interesting and kind of compelling, I feel like, because it's always changing. There's always new people here. You hate to see people leave, but there's never stagnant.
No.
So this is a very energizing spot, and we're always learning from people. By being here in Orono, we're constantly learning from folks, whether they're visiting from a different part of the world, or a student that we end up hiring who shows us how to use TikTok.
Yes, exactly.
It's all of it, and that's something that we're just so thankful for, and it's definitely a big part of why we've been able to grow, is that relationship side of it.
I mean, there's part of it. People want to hang out here, and people want to be a part of it. And you talked about that TikTok thing. Is Eric wants to be part of this community we've built, not just a greater community of Orono, but community of Orono Brewing Company, and the idea that he's part of the team. Like he's just now, and it's the same thing we had a couple of years ago, Brian. It was like, there's these people that go to University of Maine and come in and want to be part of our team because they have a special skill set that we could use. And they end up driving business. Like I don't know if Eric knows how much he's done. Yeah. Like, honestly, I think it's still probably not even comprehended in him, but I mean, he's smart enough to probably realize it, but like, it's been huge. Yeah. It's been huge.
And Eric and Brian, who were just referenced, those are UMaine students. Yes. And Eric ran the Barstool Black Bears page, and we reached out to him to the page and said, "Hey, whoever's running this page, you're doing a great job." And he ended up helping us out with our social media for both OBC and Wild Maine Hard Seltzer. And Brian, same thing. He was running a different page that was UMaine oriented. It was Maine Day. Yeah. And the same thing, we reached out to him and said, "Hey, this is awesome. Can we work with you guys?" And it's always fun. We have, for anybody that doesn't know Justin's background, he does a ton of work on the design side, and all of our designs are based on Justin's expertise. And it's cool that he's able to interface with these students to kind of utilize his design side with like their 21-year-old or 22-year-old vision of what social media marketing means to them, which is something that I'm 40 now, so like it's good for me to learn.
I mean, I downloaded TikTok because of the fact that we started recording TikTok,
and it's changing so fast now. I mean, keeping up with it is like
I said, I literally didn't have TikTok until I downloaded it so I could see that what we did for TikTok and what it's like because of Eric starting to do TikTok.
I'm a secret TikTok.
So everybody is once they get on it. He got lost for a couple hours in there.
I've been watching it pretty heavily for about a year, but I'm always like, I keep it on the down low.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
I do wonder what it's like if you're not accepting the help and expertise of a 21-year-old college student.
Yep.
And you're working with a marketing expert who might be in a different generation. Yep. I wonder how those folks that are professional marketing firms keep up.
Yeah.
Are they learning from interns that are 21 or are they using things they learned 20 years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm hoping for everybody's sake that's hiring.
Yeah, I want to say not listening to young people that's a huge miss because it's crazy.
We rely on that too, man. A good portion of our sales come from the University of Maine students. And if we don't reach them, then for at least a good portion of our sales at the tasting room and kitchen area, not the statewide distribution, obviously. Well, even the future part of it is, but like not reaching these people, and not doing, we do events here. We did, outdoor music a couple of Sundays ago, but that was really for the broader range of people. We've done parties during the school years because we got to reach those younger people. Totally. And if we don't, then we're not going to be the place that people want to go to. Mm-hmm. And so, but adding this on, and we haven't been able to do events. It's like a perfect time to also release the TikTok videos. Yep. It's because we haven't been able to do events until recently. And now it's like, okay, now we were still able to cultivate this younger audience that will watch TikTok.
Yeah.
And, but we obviously, you and I tried to do it, we'd be fumbling around a little bit. Like,
Oh, totally. Yeah, we had to learn. It empowers you. You learn from people that are of a different generation, and then you're like, oh, cool. I understand this a little bit more now. I think it also observation. We live at the brewery. Right down the hill from Ledbetter's, which is a convenience store that a UMaine alumni owns. And they, they're a convenience store that sells a bunch of different beers, but they sell a ton of OBC. And when you leave the brewery, you drive right by them. And every time I take a right and drive by Ledbetter's, I see people leaving with beer or seltzer. And when I see college students leaving with beer or seltzer, more than half of the people were leaving with seltzer. So big part of why we launched Wild Maine, because we were thinking like a lot of our staff drink seltzer. A lot of all the people that are here are enjoying it. So then looking at what's happening with the 21-year-old population and just kind of paying attention, like, all right, well, yeah, let's do this. Let's make something that is complementary to what we're doing with beer already.
Right.
And it's great to be here and see the trends as they're happening rather than hearing about them 3 years later, you know?
And it's, the best part was the quality or the sampling all the seltzers to find out the way we wanted to make our seltzer, right?
Oh, man.
We basically bought every seltzer on the market.
There were some days. I think that sampling the vodkas and sampling the seltzers and all that was some hard work. Yeah, there are some bad seltzers.
Oh, there's some
great
bad
seltzers. Yeah, there's some very bad seltzers.
I mean, we don't do. I mean, we drink other people's beer when we go out to restaurants, and we drink other people's beer when we do collaborations, and people bring us beer and stuff like that. But like, we're not sitting here on a regular basis going and buying beer from the convenience store and cracking open beers and trying them to see what we want. We do our own thing. But seltzer was a new game for us, and it was like, what can we taste? I didn't drink seltzer on the regular. I mean, I drink here and there. But like, can we taste these seltzers and find out how we would want to make one if we were doing it? And we, the vodka-based seltzer was the best on the market. Yeah. And it's just by far. And I still think to this day that we have the best tasting seltzer out there. And that's, again, a little biased, but like, I'm sorry. Like, there's just.
I brought like 3-4 packs to Illinois with me a few weeks ago, and everybody that drank it was like, oh, that's the best seltzer I've ever had.
That's awesome.
There's
big props to having people in the company who love what they do and are excited to make it happen, because that wouldn't have happened without the super teamwork from the whole staff and from a few people in particular. So I think that what you did, what Tom did to create that is pretty awesome. I think that from the taste side and from the branding side, couldn't have done it without that teamwork. And I don't know, it's awesome. I look at things like, if I do go to the store and buy a beer, sometimes because I'm going on the boat, and I'm like, I need a Coors Banquet beer, or I need a Miller High Life. When if you guys are buying a macro beer, what is it?
It's PBR probably. Miller,
Miller High Life,
Miller High Life.
How about for you?
Oh man, that's hard. I would say Miller Lite was my go-to for years, but
that's good.
But later was more High Life PBR.
Yeah, PBR is probably. I mean, I don't know. PBR is one of those ones, and same with the guys in the kitchen too. It's like if they're not drinking OBC double IPAs, it's PBR usually.
Yeah, I think that, and Narragansett sneaks in there too for me. I like Narragansett. I think Narragansett is like the local option. Yes, it's Rhode Island. Yeah, it's fun to be able to support. Like, it is an inexpensive lager. That's still regional. I like Narragansett. It's like if you're from New York, you drink like Genesee. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I honestly, would you give me a Genesee right now? I'd probably drink a Genesee Cream Ale. Genesee Cream Ale is pretty good.
I'm pretty sure last time I was at Thirsty Pig, Patrick, our sales rep, was drinking a Genesee, and I think it was like $2. So
I didn't know. Did you know that Genesee Cream Ale and at Genesee, they place in New York, makes like some really badass versions of their cream ale. Oh, cool. Like double cream ales and flavored ones.
Well, Narragansett does a bunch of like stuff you never see as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
It's awesome. I was like, dude, that makes me want to go there. Matt from Massive Beer Reviews talked to me because he lives in New Jersey, but he's like, yeah, dude, when you go to the Genesee area, like where they're from, the actual Genesee brewery, it's like there's some freaking stuff out of there that you'd be like, why don't you distribute this? Yes. Like it's insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't think you'd be able to build Wild Maine without. But you wouldn't be able to launch the Wild Maine in 2014. Well, first of all, seltzers really weren't a thing. But if you think about launching your seltzer brand at the same time we launched the brewery brand. I think the brewery's reputation and respect that we have been able to gain over the years helped further the brand of seltzer too. I think launching it now made sense because when you went into a bar, you're like, hey, you want to buy tubular? Yeah, we love tubular. Would you like to try our seltzer? Oh yeah, we give it a shot. If you were just trying to, stuff your seltzer, then you didn't know. Yeah. It's like, and then it's like you coming in there, Pat going in there. It's just the way that people are like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And then how many people are like, oh my God, we need more.
Yeah, and it gives us that opportunity to utilize the staff we have and to gain more staff too, and to utilize the space that we already are in, which is awesome.
It's really cool.
And again, speaking of tubular, thanks to everybody that's supporting us on that. Even tubular is the majority of the beer we make, and it's awesome to have folks supporting it on a weekly basis. We love having a flagship, and it's just like anything else. Like if you're training for a physical pursuit, the more you do something, the better you get. We have the opportunity to brew tubular 6 times a week, most weeks. So we're repping this thing out, and the best compliment we can have is that people like it or love it, and it's always the same. That's great to hear.
It's one of those things too. People always laugh like, "What's your favorite beer?" I'm always like, "Oh, this, that, and the other thing." Well, it's not tubular. I'm like, "No, tubular is the default favorite beer. Like it's like tubular, and what else is other than tubular? What's my favorite beer?" Then you ask me what my favorite beer is. Tubular has to be the number one because it is. It's like Allagash White and with Allagash. It's like Allagash makes some badass things in barrels and things like that. But
my favorite,
you can't go wrong with Allagash. Yeah, see.
That might come out again in the next year or two.
Yeah. But like the Allagash White is a steady, really good beer. You can't go wrong with Allagash White. And it's Maine Beer Company's lunch. There's all these beers out there that are like you can always go back to, and it's good to have one. I mean, there's other breweries out there that I couldn't tell you what their flagships are.
And that's back to what Abe. We have a ridiculous beer selection here. Like whenever I hear like anybody like you list them, and it's just like those are just the state beers.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
That's crazy.
Exactly. Like the state of Maine has some insane good beer. And I'm glad to be part of it. Like we talked today in the office too. I did laugh. I said when we back, to wrap around here is that when you mentioned we talked about slow incremental growth, the idea of thoughtful from 2005 at Woodman's till basically you guys opened a separate restaurant in the meantime, and then obviously but we talked about when I got hired in 2017, Abe, we interviewed at downtown Bangor location.
Yep.
And which was really, now that I think back on it, I do all the interviews here, and I'm like, we do it before we open. I interviewed my job when we were open. We were sitting at the corner of the bar. The bartender's just like standing there working, and there's people at the tables, and we're just talking. And I'm just like, okay, this is kind of like at the time did not feel awkward at all. I'm like looking back, and I'm like, I don't want to do that to anybody. Like, it's just weird. Like the bartender's just like, oh, I wonder what this person's saying. Ooh, I wouldn't have said that. But Abe, afterwards, like a couple weeks later, we were just like talking about like, yeah, so Justin, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna like, make some good beer this year, be fun. We'll go on some trips. So at the time, it was getting ready to where they're in the talks about going to Iceland and to New York City. Nothing had been fully finalized yet. We were working on it, and we'll make some good beer and like Abe literally like 2 months after I started, he brought me down here and was like, oh, by the way, we're going to buy this building too. And I'm just like, what happened to making good beer and going on good trips for a year and then, see what happens after that? I was 2 months later, we're like, oh, by the way, luckily it did, not luckily, but like it took us over a year to renovate the place. So I did have some, footing under my feet before I actually got into this building, but it was just kind of funny. It was like that.
Well, then today I told you that this is an awesome year because we don't have any major projects planned. And Mark was like, yeah, well, you say that, but last time you said that. But I really do feel like that right now we are in a really good spot where we don't have to have anything crazy happening. We can concentrate on what we have. We can keep on, working on just really fun, small details rather than on anything crazy new as far as growth. I feel like we're in the right size right now. And if we're going to grow again, then that's something that we'll figure out in the future. But right now, this does feel like we did just add a decent amount of capacity. And it feels really good just to be, to be able to use that to its full potential. I think excess capacity is a very scary thing for breweries. And, it's summertime right now, and we're certainly we could use some more capacity right now, but it could be different in November, December. Right. So I like the idea of being able to make sure that, to have to scramble in the summer and then still be using capacity to its full, to its full potential in the winter time. And thankfully we have those ski mountains.
Yes, and that's one of the things we get the
Should have
benefit
loved
for.
the
And that's
Sunday
something you
River.
guys. I
Thank
mean,
you.
that's one of the things. Bar Harbor is one of those things that you always sell. We sell beer to Bar Harbor. I mean, everybody in Maine tries to sell beer to Bar Harbor. We were able to get into
Right.
Bar Harbor. One of the things I always say for this company benefiting is that the fact that you're a skier and you love the mountains. So like that, just being out at Sugarloaf has been able to help. You know,
Yeah,
adjust
Sugarloaf and
that.
Sunday River have been just. I mean, it's a fabulous part of winter for any folks that go there, and I've just been so lucky that it's been that they've reciprocated our love with some love back to us, with Tubular being such a big part of what's happening there.
So we got Chickadee and Finch coming out. When this episode comes out, it's coming out on August 4th. So there's that. Will be out by now. There'll be a new seltzer flavor coming out, but I'm not going to say anything because, and even though that's technically will be out right around the time where we're already announced it. However, I do love the fact that I work for a brewery that doesn't over promise. We under promise, over deliver. So crap happens. Like, I'm not saying anything does happen or anything has happened or will happen, but it's just one of those things that you just never know. So I wouldn't want this to come out and have me have to edit this part out about this. There is a new seltzer coming. We already did announce it on the Instagram. New flavor. We're excited for that.
Chickadee and Finch.
Chickadee and Finch is gonna be fun. Double IPA with Stoneface Brewing Company out of Newington, New Hampshire.
You know, Stoneface is the second biggest brewery in New Hampshire behind Smiley Nose.
I did not know that, but I knew they would make good beer.
Yeah, they're great.
Their tasting room's awesome. I've been in there a couple of times because I mean, when I used to live in Massachusetts, whenever I would go down to visit my friends back in Massachusetts, Newington, New Hampshire, you going down 95, you pull off. I think it's Route 16, and you go off Route 16 like 2 exits, and you. It's like exiting Kelly Road here in Orono, and then but instead of like the DR disc golf being there, that's what their brewery is.
Awesome.
And so it's like you just like empty out you get off the exit, you go across the road, and you're into the parking lot.
That's rad.
And it's just like so easy to get to and get in and out of that. It's like some of these breweries, and someone was like, "Oh, I gotta go see this other brewery." I'm like, "It's in downtown Portsmouth."
Yeah.
No, sorry, I'm not going off the highway and into this thing. Same with Portland. Some of the ones like that are right there, right off the highway. Or the ones that I'm most likely going to go to, or like Mass Landing and Westbrook, where it's like they're into Westbrook, but it's like not in Portland.
Yeah.
Those are the places that I'm more likely to go to on my trip south.
Yeah,
is because they're easy to get to, and I think that that's one of the benefits we have. You don't even have to get to downtown Orono to go to Orono Brewing Company. Like you can get off Kelly Road, come up Main Street, and you're bam right here. It'd be cool. So
fill up your gas, grab a sandwich,
get some beer,
the whole circuit here.
Or put gas on the ground like Mark did.
Or do that.
What
Mark went inside to get us. Did you hear that story? Quickly, Mark was borrowing Ace's CRV. Yeah. And he put his gas pump in the thing, clicked the button. He's like, well, I got a couple of seconds. I'll go inside and get a sandwich made. And in the meantime, while he was getting his sandwich made, some guy comes in and goes, oh my gosh, there's cars out there. You're overflowing with gas. He goes, the guy turned it off. But there's gas all over the ground. He had to throw the stuff down and all that stuff.
Wow.
And so it was funny because Keith, who owns Harvest Moon and Taquerita, was pulled in after I went out there later on to get a sandwich. He's like, my God, who made the mess? And I was like, oh yeah, that would be Mark.
It was Mark.
Getting his stand. He got in the. I don't know if anybody noticed you were in there, but
it smelled gassy.
Yeah.
I was wondering what that was.
He smelled like gas, and I'm just like, oh Mark, oh God,
that's hilarious.
Oh,
I noticed
Mark,
that.
That's awesome.
I figured it was
around Mark.
Yeah. We love the environment though at Orono Brewing Company. Sorry, Mark. But yeah, so we're good beer coming out. Yep. I'll be 5 years here in February, so it's 4.5 years for me, and I'm excited to see what's going on in the future. And I loved hearing some things. Again, we talked to Mark. Definitely. It was like one of those funny things that like I had been here for that long, but some of the things that Mark told us about like opening Woodman's and all that stuff was like I had never heard those stories. I never asked you guys. It never was like, how'd you start Orono Woodman's and stuff?
We're closer now than ever. We've always gotten along, but it's easier now. We know each other. We know each other's strengths.
Right.
The only time that we ever really like had a out and out fight was we had chalk. We hadn't opened Woodman's yet. I was like 23. Mark was probably 25. Heather was 23. We had big pieces of chalk, and we were drawing out the exact dimensions of the walk-in cooler. We have 3 walk-in coolers at Woodman's now. We started off with 1. And we were trying to figure out where we'd put the kegs and where we'd put the beer, where we'd put the food. And I was lobbying for more keg space, and Mark was lobbying for more food space. And it was like middle of the afternoon, and right on the corner there where Woodman's is. And Mark and I were having an all-out, like, basically yelling at each other about how we were going to set up the walk-in. And he's like, fine, if you want that many kegs, we just won't have a kitchen. Fuck it. You know? And
That's awesome.
And Heather was like, guys, people that are watching you need to cool it, you know? And I think it was the last time Mark and I yelled, the one and only time Mark and I ever yelled.
That's a pretty good run.
I honestly think now we need a beer called Chalk War.
Yeah,
I don't know, like Chalk War. Chalk War. Someone with Chalk War.
Assassin.
Yeah. Chalkboard assassin.
So yeah, I remember being so pissed off because I wanted like that, so many tap lines and being like, man, like we're not gonna. And I was thinking like, you know, just like coming from a bar perspective, I was thinking like this is all gonna be booze. Yeah. And Mark coming from a food perspective, was like, no, we can't be in business if we don't sell a lot of food.
Yeah.
And then it actually turned out, you know, we are selling a lot of food there because Mark created an awesome kitchen. So.
But he had to get his own walk-ins.
Yeah, he had to get.
So the walk-in that the kegs are in, is that the original walk-in?
Uh-huh.
And then the food ones,
that was original. That was all the food, all the kegs.
That's pretty funny because there's a lot of
time in that walk-in, and there's not a lot of space in there.
And now it's only booze.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But
no, so is there? That's probably one of the older ones. Mm-hmm. I think is the original one the one that has like kegs on one side, food on the. Okay, that's the one I've spent time. Yeah, man, that's space to fight over.
Yeah,
that's insane.
So,
but. Orono Brewing Company is at 61 Margin Street in Orono and 26 State Street in Bangor. OronoBrewing.com.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have Abe back on at some point because we're gonna talk about state senate as well. But I think we'll talk about that another time. Yeah, I think it'll be fine. More we can do that when we get closer because obviously you're a little bit further out than normal. And
I was the first person to declare in Maine for that. And so far it's been good. Everybody asks me, they're like, "Is it stressful? How you doing?" I'm like, "No, man. It's like you need people to run."
Exactly.
And if you're gonna run, there's a chance you might lose.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if I win, great. I'm very excited to serve the state. If I lose, it's not like I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. Like I'm still going to be working on distribution. I'm still going to be working on marketing. In state politics in Maine, at least, it's not meant to be a full-time job.
No.
I don't plan on making it a full-time job. I plan on serving the state, and I'm very excited about it. But I'm also very excited to continue to do what I do in business. I think it's good to have those perspectives. So for me, it's a no lose situation. I hope that folks are excited to vote for me, but if they don't, I still have plenty of stuff to do.
Of course.
So if you win, are you going to rub it in Mark's face that Mark ran for office in Orono and didn't win?
Of course not. Mark's my treasurer.
And if you win, though, you get to pick what goes where in the walk-in.
Oh yeah, totally. No, what Mark ran as a green. That's a hard.
Yeah.
And he was running against Emily Kane. He had a lot of success.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Mark did really well as a green actually, and he's both of his parents worked as accountants, so he's a fantastic treasurer.
Well, yeah, awesome. and it's fine. I just joke about it because it was one of those things I feel like I'd hold over my friend's head, being like, "Hey, yeah, remember when you ran for office? Yeah, I ran for office. I won." But
let's see.
Well, hopefully he wins. But I think
we have a great start, and it's super fun learning from everybody that's done it before me. And
sure,
I just read Obama's latest book, and if you haven't read that, it's a good one. He's super honest in it. It's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah,
I'll check it out.
Definitely.
Yeah, we'll get back on to some point to talk actually like
that'd be really
politics
cool.
About
definitely
running for office in the area and stuff like that as we get closer and stuff like that. But
cool.
Yeah,
we think we're winding down.
I'm ready right now. You done with your beer, right?
Yeah, 2 beers gone.
2 beers.
Real quick, I'll let everybody listening to us be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the Maine State of Mind. Subscribe and follow us on Apple, Spotify, and go to YouTube if you want to see the video version of our podcast. And most of all, thanks for your support.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
At Orono Brewing Company on Instagram, follow it at Wild Maine Hard Seltzer.
I came here to drink some beer and talk.
Yeah.
And the beer's almost gone.
Well, it's just
we've succeeded.
We did it. But yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Abe.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks. Peace.